Please can you remind me if you'll be so kind, staring out into space, asking God to hear my case, trying to think of all things past. How long will my memory last? The purple angel, the purple angel, the purple angel.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer's Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and founder of Alzheimer's Speaks as well. For those of you that are new to our show, I'm just going to give you a brief introduction as to who we are. Basically, we're an advocacy-based company providing multiple platforms to shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort around the world. We believe that by joining forces, sharing knowledge, and having an everyday conversation about life with dementia is the only way we're going to remove the stigmas attached to memory loss and help people continue to live life with purpose. Together, we feel we can help the world understand the true needs of this disease and just remove that fear and isolation that so many families are dealing with in our community. At our core, collaboration is the one piece that we think is going to hold us together and help us win this battle against dementia. And we know it's working because of all your likes and clicks and shares with your Twitter tribes, your LinkedIn colleagues, your Facebook friends, your Pinterest, all of the social media, just those small little clicks of sharing our radio show and our resource website, our dementia chats, the blog, all the different information that we have here that is for free. As you push that out to your sphere, has a really powerful impact. In fact, you made Alzheimer's Speaks the number one influencer online regarding Alzheimer's, according to ShareCare and Dr. Oz. And the important thing is that the more each of us pushes out information to our spheres, the more likely people are going to see it as a normal conversation. It's really going to remove the fear, and it's going to allow them to reach out much easier and much quicker when the time is right for them. So again, I really can't thank you enough for all of your support, and I hope as you're listening right now that you are pushing the show out and sharing this information with all of your friends and family and colleagues. Before I introduce our great guest today, I always like to give a shout out to a few organizations, and one is the Purple Angel Project. Many of you might not have heard that, but there is a new global symbol that's been around for about 2 years now. It was started by a man in the UK by the name of Norms McNamara and Jane Moore. Norms is diagnosed with dementia, and this graphic can be used, this logo, by anyone, an individual or a corporation. And it's free of charge. It costs little time and little money. And you can get access to that through Alzheimer's Speaks. Just go to our Initiations and Projects page, and you'll see a tab there on the Purple Angel. And you can start using that, on Facebook and in your emails. And the whole goal of it is just to get people to ask, what is it? So that, again, we can have this conversation. I also want to just give a shout out here at Alive and Social. I don't know if you're all aware of the great show called the Twin Cities Hit Show with Rusty Gatenby, but if you're looking for a morning show that really, can go with you anywhere, check them out. They play Monday through Thursday at 9:30, and it's just a fun, upbeat show. You'll hear everything that's going on locally and nationally. And it just moves along. It'll make your day start out just right. So let me go ahead and introduce our guest today. Mindy Bolton has been so gracious. We have juggled the schedule to get her into the studio quite a bit, and she is just such a sweetheart. Mindy is an art and recreational facilitator in long-term care and in adult day program settings. And she uses visual art as well as improvisational theater techniques and writing and movement to engage people with dementia and ignite their passion. And so we're just really excited to have her here today talking about basically her passion in life to help those with dementia. So welcome, Mindy. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for coming and doing this dance with us to get you on the air here. It's been quite the challenge, and she's just been so sweet about maneuvering this path. Next week I'm going to be in jury duty, and so it just kind of made everything tumble around here. And she's just been great to work with. And I can tell that she's got this passion for people with dementia. Mindy, have you been personally touched in your own family that sparked this interest, or what led you on this path?
Yeah, that's a great question. My Nana did have dementia in her last couple of years of life, and I had a relationship with her mostly over the phone because she was in Florida, but also an in-person relationship with visits, and I just found those interactions are some of my most valued that I have with her. It sort of opened a door to her that had never been opened, and I thought, wow, this is something people should know about. This is something I should learn more about. So I would say I still do the work with her in mind, absolutely, no doubt. Also, I've always, ever since I was young, been intrigued by people who act differently than the norm, whether it's because they choose to, or they naturally do, or they might have a neurological condition that makes it that way. I've always been intrigued by it, attracted to it, and in times where people might turn their cheek, I usually open up and thrive.
Oh, that's neat. Can you tell us, how did you get involved in the arts as a whole?
Yeah, I think I've been involved in the arts from day one, naturally, ever since I was young. Interested in things of the imagination as opposed to the direct reality in front of us has always intrigued me. Growing up, I was the youngest of three girls, and so it was kind of like my role to be sort of the creative, daydreamer. I would go places with my family, and they'd be kind of doing their thing, playing their sports or folksing, and I would be off, playing. And so I've always had a playful nature. And I did go to school after high school for cosmetology because I was concerned about, what should I do for a 4-year degree? School was sometimes a difficult place for me to concentrate. I needed a lot of creative stimulation that I wasn't getting. So I was a hairstylist, and I just recognized that I had a creative spirit, but also such a connection with people. And so I wanted to figure out a way that I could be creative and utilize the arts in order to connect with people and to connect people to each other.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you think creativity is so important when you're dealing with somebody with dementia? What's that connection that you're seeing?
Yeah. Well, my intuition has always told me that creativity is important because in my very initial experiences with people with dementia, which was actually at a small group home with very intentional care for those with dementia. It was a great first environment. I just quickly saw that your typical logical linear, how was your day, where are you from, that wasn't quite working. And I thought, okay, what could we do with this? I realized quickly that a great way to get to know someone is to do something with them. A great way to learn what they can do and can't do is to start engaging them, and you need to have kind of a fearless confidence in just exploring materials together and everything else, or conversation together. So I learned quickly that my creative spirit and even things like visual art projects was a great way for me to initiate a relationship with a person and to learn about them and to connect with them. And also just each and every day, it's kind of what keeps your gusto going and keeps things interesting in an environment that could become mundane or stale or challenging.
Now, you use different modalities, in terms of art. Can you describe some of your methods for creatively engaging people living with dementia?
Yeah. The methods are definitely, it's a large artist thing to say that not every artist is 100% original. We're constantly compiling things from each other. We're constantly inspiring each other and using each other's ideas. So I've used different creative community outlets to talk about, my work with people with dementia. Also, I'm part of the ArtSage organization. I don't know if everyone's heard of that, but
Why don't you tell people a little bit about ArtSage?
Yeah, so ArtSage is kind of a connector and convener for people that are established artists that want to get into the realm of creative aging care that's kind of up and coming. We're learning that once people retire and are at a new point in their aging process, they have basically time and interest that they didn't have before that they could be using in creative ways. So ArtSage is an organization that helps kind of bridge the healthcare community and the arts community. And they take trainees every year who are artists who, like I said, want to be submerged in these different environments and to share their art with a formerly kind of untapped community. So I'm involved with them, and I learned a lot about many different avenues of creative engagement. There's also time slips, which maybe some of you have heard of. You can find more information about that on timeslips.org. A storytelling technique. Also doing a lot of sharing ideas with other artists about simple projects they've done and how to modify them and bring them into care settings. My latest intrigue has been with, the use of improvisational acting techniques, which I've mainly utilized on my own just through research on the internet. And I've gone to some improv acting classes in churches and basically learned about the yes and acting technique of basically always embracing your partner, your acting partner, always making them right and always taking what they say and not only agreeing or accepting it, but also bringing it to the next level. And so that's what I do at work often with people is I focus on a lot of voices that would otherwise be lost. I make sure that any sort of statement that's made to me that I'm addressing it with an open attitude, a yes and attitude, and then also bringing something to them so that we're kind of creating a short scene together, I guess you could say.
Can you give us an example of something somebody might say, and then how you would work that and elevate the conversation?
Well, what I found in care environments is that so many people that are looked at as vulnerable and that are looked at as people that need are actually really eager to give. And so I always get asked, can I help you? I'll be moving something or doing something and I'm preparing, I've got to get this set up for these people. And it's actually like, well, yes, you can, and I directly figure out a way of, yes, please help me. And this is how you can do it. Whereas someone might say, no, I'm fine. And I'm getting it ready for you. And also, the one large thing we get in long-term care is I want to go home. Mm-hmm. And so usually I'll embrace that as I might say something like, yes, home does sound good. And I'd like to go home too. Can you tell me about home? Starting conversations and not just addressing it as a quick, no, moving on.
Or you are home.
Right. This is home. Yeah. Yeah. And it's really about embracing each individual's reality.
Okay. Well, that's wonderful. That was a great example to be able to give. What do you, when you engage somebody like that, what do you get out of doing that? How does that make you feel? And what do you see their reaction be?
I get great joy. Yeah. It's what makes me wake up in the morning, just from, going into these environments where people could very potentially be pretty down, pretty sad, pretty, not feeling so well, and going in with the intention of challenging that idea that, maybe this isn't so bad. What can we do? Even if it's with a simple conversation. So I always say that, like, my payment is minimally through financial means, but maximally through smiles and winks. The wink is the best when it's kind of like, okay, you've got this figured out. You get me. Because I take the time to connect with somebody and to kind of meet them where they're at and then twist it into something fun.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about winks and smiles, it reminds me of my friend James Creasy, who has Jiminy Wicket, and he's developed a croquet game that is adaptive. And one of his sayings is, instead of miles per hour, it's smiles per second.
Yeah,
and that's how he measures. Is he doing well? Is he making a difference? And it really is about that connectivity. And I can see that, I can hear it in your voice, and our audience can't see it, but if you could see this woman's eyes, she is just so present and so excited and so grounded in this, and yet there's this swirl of energy and excitement about her. You can just feel your passion, which is rare.
Yeah, thank you.
And is really fun to see. Can you talk a little bit about how you pick up on the abilities of individuals in order to maybe enhance a group setting?
Yeah, absolutely.
Through the arts?
Yeah. I think just this concept alone is really important. I think usually as professionals in these settings, technically we're supposed to find their inabilities or their disabilities so that we can focus on an adaptive environment. But there's so many remaining abilities that are often overlooked. And sometimes, especially in the case of dementia, you sort of lose a veil of inauthenticity or of a personal agenda. You're more present. You're more accepting. I'm always amazed that although they're perhaps in a world where everyone's a stranger, they're so darn nice, And so I tap into those abilities. I think of where technically they could be and where they are, and it amazes me. And so that's what really kind of keeps the energy going. And usually, the groups that I lead on a consistent basis in long-term care are very flexible in ability, cognition, and numbers. Some days I'll have 15, 20 people. Some days it'll be smaller. But usually what I aim to do is embrace everything that everyone says and does right away in the beginning, and note it to myself and then keep sort of accessing that. Also, if I'm with groups consistently and I learn that one person really has a funny bone and just a keen sense of one-liners and a certain knack for knowing, like I use poetry a lot, and they might have a keen sense of, reciting poetry that's very classic, I will remember that, and I will bring them into the sort of, it's almost like it's a planned performance, like I'll bring them into it. I'll know they're there, and I'll start that line of poetry that I know they can finish, and then before you know it, they're kind of more spotlighted than I am. People that are really social, I'll kind of have them in more of a greeter position, and even maybe ask them, like, hey, I have a group today, and I really want a lot of people to come. Could you welcome people as they come, and things like that? So basically, I'll kind of get everyone working together, and as opposed to, hey, come listen to me and do what I tell you. It's more of a communal production, really, I guess, in a way.
Well, that's neat. I love that you focus on the abilities, because I think you're so right. We categorize people and we try to make them so different from us. Mm-hmm. And nobody wants to be have the focus on them of what they don't do well. None of us want that. Mm-hmm. We want to be purposeful. We want to be included. And that doesn't change with a diagnosis of dementia. Mm-hmm. And so focusing on the abilities and adapting tasks to allow them to continue to connect and be purposeful. When you were talking about having greeters, it reminded me of my mom when she was in the nursing home. She used to love to sit by the front door, and she would greet everyone. And most people didn't know she lived there. because social skills were still really good with her. Don't ask her what day it is, or to go pick out an appropriate outfit to go out in, or anything like that. But she could carry on a conversation, and she could still engage people, and she could eavesdrop. She could do all that, all of those things, and really know what was going on, and that just made her feel so good.
Yeah.
And I remember, there was a period of time where they're like, well, we can't have people sitting by the front door anymore.
Oh.
And I was so sad because she wasn't going to leave.
Yeah.
Her job was just to greet people, and make them feel more comfortable entering the nursing home, because a lot of people are very uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
And so that role was critical in my mind on a lot of sides. But I was really saddened when she couldn't sit there anymore, But, things change, and you have to adapt, and that's all you can do. So I love the abilities, focusing on that and figuring out what can they still do.
Absolutely. And that's really what any good leader does. I always say anything applicable to people with dementia is just as applicable to anyone, that it's these simple things that we want to be heard. We want our strengths to be utilized. And unfortunately, somebody that lives their average day doesn't have all of these things. You know what I mean? In our working life, we might be told, no, you can't do this. And I think that for those living with dementia, can we at least enrich their life now at this stage? You know what I mean? When we are the care community around them, can't we give them that gift maybe that they had never even had? Yep. How interesting would that be?
Yeah, and that is very, very important. What kind of, I'm going to ask you, what kind of challenges have you found in trying to engage your business in long-term care in the industry as a whole? Have you, most businesses run up against some obstacles and stuff. And so if you had a magic wand, what would you slice beyond? What would your wish list be to be able to offer more engagement?
Oh man, it's endless what I wish. Yeah, I would say the main thing I think is people in organizations have a specific role that's been allotted to them, and that is their role, and that's what they're supposed to do, and they want to find answers and solutions according to that role. And that alone is hard to do, because right now we're in such a time of change. There's more people in long-term care. There's more people with dementia in long-term care. I mean, it's a difficult environment to navigate. So what I found is people, when you bring something to the table that is new and boundaryless and dynamic, people can't grasp it, and they can't quite run with it in the way that you wish they could so easily. There's a lot of red tape, and then there's a lot of defense of, well, this is the way we do it, and this is the way we need to do it. And I don't know if I'm answering your question clearly, but I'm always sort of, I remember when I first started in long-term care, I asked, hey, I have a big travel backpack. Can I fill it with art supplies and walk around and do visits to engage people in art? And I remember they just looked at me kind of like, first of all, what are you even saying? And second of all, that is not why we hired you. You know what I mean? And it was this amazing idea that I know could yield great results, but it was just totally undoable, at least for those people that I approached.
Well, what's so sad is, how fun. We all that's like, opening up a present, not knowing what's there, and you have all these possibilities, and then being able to pick and choose with that specific individual. What would they like to do?
Right.
That's in here,
Right.
I think that's an incredible way to approach it, and I see a lot of times, with activities and rec therapy, and again, I believe that you guys are one of the most connected people to the residents in the whole community, and yet I don't think you're allowed the authority and the responsibility to make some distinct decisions when you have such great knowledge
Absolutely.
of the individual. And, personally, I would love to see that change in more communities and in more settings. One of the things you had mentioned with, kind of your magic wand was, well, this is what we hired you to do, or this is what we've always done.
Right.
Well, what we've always done isn't working, and I think, and I scream this from the mountaintops all the time that, we can't get stagnant. If something's working, that's great, but that doesn't mean it can't be improved. We should always be striving to improve. And when we're dealing with dementia, I mean, everyone knows and has accepted that every person with dementia is different. Every environment is different. Every care partner is different. And then all of that can change in seconds. And so why do we keep thinking that everything has to be the same? This bed in a bag fix or program. And, I so appreciate your passion and your creativity and your drive to make a change and to get people to recognize that doing different things are okay. Creativity is extremely important. And, when we tap into creativity, we share a peacefulness and a joy that you can't even describe, but it makes people more connected when there's this passion and when they get a positive emotion from that.
Yeah.
And that's not rocket science. That is something we all know, we all see, but we don't seem to value in business as much as we should in the service industry.
Absolutely.
And I know there's lots of people that will argue with me and probably be mad that I made that comment, but I see and I talk to a lot of different people in a lot of powerful positions, doing a lot of great work. But again, all of us out here can do even better.
Yes.
Yeah. And I would love to see those lines broken and those walls come down where we allow staff to do kind of trial and error and be creative and to allow them to fail.
Absolutely.
And have ownership and not scold them for failure, thank them for trying, and then mentor them on how would you do it different next time.
Yeah.
What's so wrong with that approach? I don't get it.
Yeah, it's an engaging approach. You're engaging the care partners and the care team, and you're engaging the people. So absolutely, you're spot on. And that's what artists have always done so well, is kind of push the envelope and put messages and ideas out there in a creative way. So I think that all artists in the community, any listening, let's talk, because I think it's a great avenue to bring that discussion outside of it's the sort of incubator of healthcare, to make it known. And I mean, globally, people are embracing change and being creative. And so it would be nice to use those tactics in long-term care and just generally care environments and communities with aging people and with people with dementia,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really critical piece. And, I think if we can get people to be more creative, more engaged, and not just with, activities and rec therapists, but with everybody in the community. Allow everyone to play a little bit more, to be a little bit more real instead of this is my job, wah, 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 wah.
I know for sure we'd get a lot of more volunteers and family members coming through,
Yep.
I know that for sure. I think that everything good that happens can happen in these environments, that it's not so complicated. We just need well-intentioned, supportive communities and teams around these people.
Exactly. Now, you have experienced a variety of caregiving environments over the last 5 years. Can you explain the importance of being mindful and empathy amongst care partners and different teams?
Yeah.
How do you see that play out?
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back again to that set, this is your role, this is what you do. Usually that role is described in such an in-depth way. I don't even know if people can usually even fulfill that role, but they're certainly trying. And at the end of the day, I think people get stressed and burnt out and really kind of lose sight of the common goal, which is to care for people and to support them in their life and their lifestyle. So in group homes and independent care settings, on care teams for a range of people handling different abilities and cognitive change, there's been an underlying theme of this focus on the kind of nitpicky, logical, linear, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, grooming, which are all very important, but creativity can be intermixed in all these. Creativity, spontaneity, people having an awareness of humility, that they don't know everything all the time, and they can admit that, a support and a playfulness and an understanding, a way for two people to talk to each other and relate on a subject, without defense. And mindfulness is huge. I know that it's becoming more talked about, kind of in a spiritual way, of just being mindful of what you're doing, how you feel when you're doing it, and what impact it has on others. I think that in care environments, it can be very much routine in what you're told to do, and you can kind of lose your own personal zest and creativity within all that. And I've seen it in every environment I've been in, even environments that really cater to, art and the individual can even fall into the sort of more stressed, reactive type of mode. So I think in every environment I've been in, I've wished for more mindfulness and more of a focus on empathy, and really in trainings and orientations, that being specifically addressed. I've always hoped for it to be more addressed also in education, which they are starting to do now. So there are future care partners and teams hopefully will be more set up for that environment, where mindfulness and empathy is discussed and used as a tool. And not, I found that oftentimes my mindfulness and my empathy has gotten me into trouble, where I've sort of been told, you need to, separate yourself emotionally from the situation. I kind of get coached down from having these very genuine, raw, and useful feelings about what I'm doing. So if that was embraced, I know that a lot of people like myself would be probably further embedded in decisions made in these places.
So, when you call mindfulness, to me, I always refer to it as conscious caring.
Yeah.
Just being aware, because I think sometimes people don't even know what mindfulness is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I even Google it every once in a while, so I know when I throw the word around, that it's basically taking time to step back and be self-aware, and to be aware of what leads. I mean, it's definitely good when you're caring for those with dementia, because you can find the triggers of what might upset them, and so that mindfulness of kind of being very in tune with the environment and what could be making people have sort of a harder time than they need to. Yeah, and that has health benefits, so that's definitely something that doctors, nurses, and decision makers should embrace and utilize as a tool.
You would think so.
Yeah.
And some do it better than others.
Yeah, and I definitely tell the people that I recognize doing it. At work, even though I'm put into, situations where I really wish things were different, I recognize that, I'm me and I have the effect that I have. And if I'm distraught, I'm not going to be able to have the effect that I want to have. So I have to listen to my own advice. You know what I mean? And if I see anybody that expresses even just a grain of empathy and mindfulness, I really blow it up into wow, and I say exactly what happened and why it was great, and let's do it again. And
how do you or maybe I should ask this, are you able to talk with care partners very often, with family members and stuff, of people that you work with in the communities?
Yeah, I talk to them in a very casual way. So I guess it's a good thing that I'm currently not in positions where I'm going into care planning meetings and things like that. So usually when I do, I'm mainly focusing on the facilitating of the group of individuals. And then what I like to do is I like to welcome people into the group. So if I'm leading a group and maybe even somebody might come and it might even be seen as disruptive, but to me, it's never disruptive because, I want to embrace anyone that comes along. So I will integrate, family members and nursing aides into the group and sort of engage them similarly to the way I would anyone else. And before you know it, they're having an interaction that they would not have predicted and that they're learning from. But it's not me telling them as an authority. You know what I mean? It's not me saying, oh, okay, well, this is the situation. You're basically leading by example is how I would say it. And then I also do, I have relationships with family members and I do find the conversation isn't as open, and that I don't want to cross boundaries, especially when I'm at work. But the interactions are always positive. I make sure to let them know of how much I value their loved one and give specific examples. I know in one case I had someone come and they were visiting their grandmother they hadn't seen in a really long time. And I said, I just have to tell you, she's very special to me. There are days when it's hard for me to be here and she makes it a lot easier. And she has this wonderful vocabulary. And I said, I love her use of the word tremendous. And because she always says tremendous, and I think that's a great word. And the granddaughter got kind of a glisten in her eye, kind of like a joyful tear, and was like, she used to always say that, and, that's so cool. And so, things like that I definitely go out of my way to do. And they aren't necessarily, it's not saying, oh, here in the status of your, I always get looked at, I approach a family member and they go, are you their nurse? And if I'm not, it's like, oh, you're no help to me. But here, wait, I can give you this sweet little tender moment that we shared. You know what I mean? And it might mean any more than when they had their last PRN or whatever,
Well, in those, I can tell you from when my mom lived in a community for 14 years, those were huge moments. My dad was in one too, and I still have the letter one of the staff wrote about my dad when he died, and it's like, I'm going to cry right now thinking about it, but it was like, it was huge, huge, because I knew they were loved. And that's, I think, one of family's greatest fears of people don't know them. And you saying that word, tremendous. It was just like, she gets her. She gets her. She knows the value of her. And when we can share those moments, that's when we diffuse a lot of the friction between family and staff.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that that's tapped into nearly as much as it should be or could be. I don't think people understand, the angry relative that comes in that's mad. And, when I go train all the time, I try to explain to the staff, I ask them, why do you think they're like that? Why do you think they act like that? Why do you think they're always on the attack with you? Oh, they're just jerks. They're just mean. They don't get our job. And I'm like, that's not it at all. They are trying to protect their loved one. And the only way to protect them is to look for problems, because that's how we're trained, And so until they know that you are safe and you haven't given them anything to trust you or to feel that you're safe, they can't let go of that mode. And so they're always going to be in that protective mode, looking for a problem, because they've got limited time to spend. And when we do that, we're taking away from families time to get back to their core of their relationship. So we're not doing anybody any good by not communicating fully. And I get so frustrated with that. I get frustrated with the surveyors who want us to document things different. And, I really believe that communities have to start documenting things different. And then we have to also train the surveyors of what truly is important and why. Why this is so meaningful and a huge value. And not that we don't have to document and call families when someone gets hurt or a med was screwed up or, all that stuff still has to happen. But you don't always have to reach out on a negative. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, that's what most communities do.
I would agree, yeah.
And you had mentioned earlier about infusing families with, you know, being more volunteer oriented and things. I mean, that's a huge factor. You know, they will not only volunteer their time and their skills, but they'll donate funds.
Yeah.
You know, they'll want to be part.
Right.
But we don't let them in.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I just had somebody visit. It was a friend, and I was leading exercise. And she came up, and she was sort of tiptoeing up, feeling like, oh, I'm disrupting. And I said, come on in. And I was like, I need your help. And she came in and was leading half the group with, you know, the exercise noodle. And I just threw her right in there. And I had met her before, so that I knew she wasn't completely shy and I wouldn't be, you know, flustering her. So yeah, it's stuff like that. It's simple stuff. And I can say I know for sure that I'm never necessarily recognized for it, but at this point I really don't care. I see it happening and I see it working. And so it's like my own little data I'm collecting, you know, and then I'm hoping I can obviously continue to educate and kind of spread that good news. But yeah, I think it's 100% legitimate to, if we go in with good news first, then we're going to soften the potential bad news. And also, if we're really open, I find that in a lot of the care centers I've observed, they're not very proactive in offering much education to the family. So just to say things like, you know, I know we have a lot of issues with missing items because of wandering and collecting and hoarding, symptoms of dementia. And if we could just explain that these are symptoms of dementia, much like, you know, someone with cancer will have pain or something else, that this is something that can happen, you know, and that we recognize that, and this is what we'll do to help lessen the inconvenience of this, but that this is something that can happen, just so that they don't arrive angry that, you know, these very expensive items are missing. You know, it's like we had that discussion, and, you know, they were warned about it, and they feel that they have a teeny bit more control in the situation. Yeah.
Very well. I love the work you're doing and the way you're going about it, and you know, staying strong in terms of believing, you know, that you're making a difference, because I'm the type of person, I'm all about lead by example. I think that's and I don't even try to waste time convincing people of what I do or how I do it. I just feel and have found that just drains my energy. And people who believe what I believe will be attracted to what I do, and will work together to just, you know, be more powerful in terms of developing change. And those that don't, well, that's okay. That's their opinion, and I don't want somebody on the team who doesn't believe. You know, and so I admire you for pushing forward and, you know, even coming and talking about what it is you're doing and how you're doing it. Can you explain to our listeners your spiritual outlook on building community for those living with dementia? Because I think that's really important too.
Yeah. So I think that in a lot of cases, spirituality is a wonderful sort of vehicle for promoting this type of community development around people who are potentially isolated. So, for one, I consider myself a spiritual person. I was not raised a particular religion, but when I say spirituality, I mean an overarching life force, and we'll call it. And so I do a lot of personal work in the realm of spirituality in order to give me the gusto to continue with what I do. Because at the end of the day, when you're on a dementia care unit that is still quite unrefined, and it can be just flat out a sad place, a scary place, you know, in times that are tough. And I've utilized different spiritual practices in order to kind of help me keep my zest, you know, that is so easily lost. And I did, many years ago, I did a course that allowed me to become ordained so that I can do different ceremonies and things like that. And I just kind of got more of a back knowledge on spirituality and the concept of the ego and the spirit and concepts like, life after death or what happens. Obviously, since I'm in an environment that is, end of life care, I'm seeing people die and I'm seeing people grieve and all these things that make you want to reach out and think about the bigger picture. And I think that people avoid it. They're scared of it. They want to just kind of keep on living their daily routine without facing it. But I think that actually the opposite should happen. And I think that when people do choose to step into this challenging environment, it has a really great spiritual effect. It can be quite uplifting. I know there was a volunteer that came and she said, it's so interesting because I came here to help people, but I got to tell you, I have OCD and I struggle with it quite a bit. And ever since I started volunteering here, my OCD symptoms have really minimalized. And it's like, wow. And so then she said it herself. This teenage girl is very admirable. She said, I came to help them, but really they helped me. And I thought, oh gosh, that's the golden ticket. Like that's what people are not seeing is that, there's this whole, volunteer, give yourself, help those that need you. It's like, no, there's this whole side to it. You're going to get fully reimbursed, like in a major way. You're going to feel amazing. You're going to feel different when you leave there than when you came, especially with good supporters. That's what you need is good supporters while you're there. There's definitely a situation where you could go in and feel worse. And that's what I'm trying to diminish is that the stigma, involved in, I'm going to see my grandma. And, it's like that you do it once a year because it's no fun. And it's
you
like,
gotta.
yeah. And it's like, I promise you that if the right energy and the right systematic changes are put in place and the right changes are made, it can actually be a totally opposite environment to what it is. And yeah, I think I answered that question.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, it comes into something we were talking prior to going on air about, just the verbiage we use in terms of caregiving. Caregiving is perceived about giving it away, doing for others, not getting filled back up. But a care partner or care companion says, hey, this is a two-way street, and this is relationship-based, and I so agree with you. You get filled so much. I mean, it feels good to do good. It feels good to know that you had a positive impact on somebody. I mean, it does. And we don't consciously think about that stuff. We're not taught that. We don't, I think we have to get back to building community. We have to get back to being relationship-based. I think that's what's so destructive in our world today is nobody cares. If they kill somebody or if they hit somebody or if they say something nasty, everyone's desensitized. It's like, well, it doesn't matter. It's just words or, they'll be fine, And it's like, no, those things have big impact.
Absolutely.
And, but what has even bigger impact are the positive things, and they're almost rare finds these days. And so I think they're valued even more when they come about. And so the gifts you receive back are huge. One of the things I talk about in terms of culture change is to try to get people to think about, what you're talking about with giving back is, what would the world look like, or just your little portion of it if you didn't look down at your phone and you just gave eye contact to everybody you passed with a smile. Doesn't cost you any money, doesn't cost you any time. And then think of how did they respond to you? Did you get a smile back? Were they caught off guard, because that's not the normal thing to do? Yeah. And then and then how does that make you feel? Just to make someone else's world a little bit more pleasant, because we don't know what's spinning in somebody's head with dementia, but we don't know our neighbors either, what's really going on, because we put on this front. And then, so then how does that make you feel? And most people will say it makes them feel good. And then what would that look like if you just got 10 other people to do that? Simple little changes that have huge, powerful impact
Absolutely.
in society.
And they are simple, and a lot of times it's free. You know,
Yep.
the things that are going to make a difference are free. And I did actually I've pitched ideas to a lot of leaders, and you know, they didn't like eat it up right away because we're just not there yet. You know what I mean? But I explained that a lot of these things are very simple. You know, they're things that could even start to be done tomorrow. You know,
Yep.
like even just the way I go onto the unit with my palms faced up and my eyelids raised and my smile, it's like that will let somebody know that, oh, I'm supposed to be here. You know, she looked at me, she smiled. Now I at least know that I'm even supposed to be here and that I'm even a person. I remember one time I went up to a woman and I was like, gosh, you have a beautiful face. And she goes, I have a face? And it was hilarious. She touched her face and goes, I have a face? And it's like, really, I mean, it's as simple as that. Before, they didn't even know. They maybe didn't even know they existed because nobody has acknowledged them yet, you know. So it's the simple things, and it's the things that we all want, you know, but sometimes we get so busy we forget we want them. But so it doesn't have to be these catastrophic shifts, you know, like, you know, now have creative engagement programming all day long. You know, it's like, no, just, you know, exemplify these simple things that make such a big difference for each moment of this person's life. And I do a lot of writing down the quotes of the people I'm with who are living with dementia. You know, like one woman, she'll say, I saw her and opened my arms and hugged each other. And she's like, I love people who love me, you know, and it's like, yes, it's just as simple as that, you know. Love people who love me, and then doesn't it make the whole day a lot easier, you know?
Exactly. That sounds like it would be a really cool book to put together.
Yeah.
You know, just showing the simple changes, the huge impact on both sides. I don't know. Have you seen the movie Alive Inside?
Yeah.
And that movie is a great one where, you know, they just put on a headset and you'll see somebody's mood change from really crabby or non-communicative or whatever it might be, and all of a sudden they're joyful. But when you watch that movie, it's more than just changing the mood of that person. You can see the whole room change by that one person's energy changing. It affects everyone, and they're like, oh my gosh, we've never seen that person smile, or we've never seen them sing, or we've never heard their voice, or whatever. And people are shocked and they're amazed at what can happen, and then it shifts them. And so this stuff is really, really powerful. It's really important. And you know, I get what you're talking about is in terms of talking with supervisors and organizations that they're not there yet, because we have this belief that it has to cost a lot of money. It's got to take a lot of time. And it's got to have an incredible skill set.
We have to have 10 meetings about it.
It's a year-long process, you know.
And it's a big deal. We worked very hard.
And a lot of this stuff can just be done instantly if we give people permission to try.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's I think that's a huge mistake in big business, is not allowing people to try. I think the mistake is to sit back and wait way too long to make a decision, or never jump in the pond to begin with, you know, to feel the water and the amazement, or, you know, whatever it is. It's just really, we've gotten so cumbersome, you know, with bureaucracy and legality and being politically correct, or making sure we have the politically correct people on a committee that a lot of times don't even want to be there, you know, and they do us harm in terms of moving forward, instead of saying, gosh, you know, you don't have a degree and you're just a family member, you're a person living with dementia, we'd love to have you. You know, it's not about titles. It's about tapping into people who really are in tune with raw needs. And especially when we're dealing with, you know, people with dementia who might not be able to communicate their needs anymore, we need people on the ground who can interpret what it is and come up with creative ways to fill their soul. You know.
Yep, absolutely.
So, well, very, very interesting. This has been a wonderful talk. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell our listeners, Mindy?
Yeah, I mean, if you're interested in learning more about me, you can go onto my website on minnesotaartist.org if you search Mindy Bolton. And then I always love getting any sort of inquiries or questions or ideas, and I'd love to help collaborate with anybody who has a similar point of view. So you can email me at yesandthankyou@gmail.com.
Yes, and thank you at gmail.com. I have to ask, how did you come up with that email? Because it's very unique.
Well, I just wanted something people could remember easily, and that's sort of the whole energy of anything you give me as far as creative engagement with people with dementia. It's always, the answer is yes and thank you. And it's also, I use it at work a lot. Every single thing anybody does for me, I say thank you, thank you, thank you a million times. Just because even if I'm having a bad day or whatever, that always just gets my brain charged. And it's
just living with gratitude and respect.
Yeah.
Very, again, very simple concept, living with respect and gratitude, but and not very many people do it, you know, and not something that, again, has to cost any money. It's a mindset. So I think a lot of what we're talking about in terms of shifts has to take place, you know, with perception.
Absolutely.
And opening up to new ways and new ideas and allowing people to get out of the box. And most people don't like being in the box. I don't care what level of a position they're in.
Yeah.
They know they're locked in and they're locked down.
Yes.
And so if everyone can just come to an agreement, we got to open the box. We got to shift the size and the shape, and we can still be a container, but we don't have to look the same as everyone else. We don't have to, you know, we can be fluid. Yeah. Life is fluid.
Yes, it is. Well, and people in these organizations that might feel in a box, the residents and the receivers of the care may feel the exact same way, you know, so you can relate on that level, definitely. And since we've brought up so much kind of the economic, you know, standpoint of things costing money and, you know, things like that, a great book to read is called A Whole New Mind by Daniel Pink. And it talks about how even in an economic point of view, this sort of approach of emotions and feelings actually is the next big money maker. You know, it has to be inevitably. So it's just, that's a really good read.
Yeah. And that's by Daniel Pink.
Okay. Yeah, Daniel Pink.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, you can reach Mindy Bolton at her website. And you want to say that again? Yeah,
if you go to minnesotaartists.org, it's just a great website full of artists from Minnesota. And you can just search me, Mindy Bolton, and you can find my page.
Okay. Or you can email her at yesandthankyou@gmail.com. Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you.
Before we sign off, I'm just going to give some highlights. You may or may not have listened to our last show, which was called Loving Someone with Alzheimer's, How to Shift into a Peaceful, Joyous Holiday Energy. Really an interesting conversation. We had... these women are doing a summit, and so there's going to be a lot of teleseminars coming out of this that you'll be able to listen to, and you can get the link to sign up for that. It's free. Following this show, the following week, we're going to have Dr. Mosh on, and she's going to talk to us about neuropsychology, what it is, and how it can help those living with dementia. Our next Dementia Chats will be December 8th. In November, we just weren't able to coordinate our schedules to do them on the 2nd and 4th of the month. So we'll be getting back into gear December 8th on that. And again, for those of you that aren't familiar with Dementia Chats, that's where it's a free webinar where our experts actually have dementia, so you can bring any of your questions that maybe you can't ask your loved one or your client, and you'll get some wonderful advice. If you are in Blaine, tomorrow we're going to be out doing a couple of screenings of the film His Neighbor Phil. At 1:30, we're going to be at Edgewood Senior Living, and then at 6 p.m. tomorrow night, we'll be at White Pine. And then December 2nd, we are also going to be in Inver Grove at White Pines as well. A couple of blog articles. There's a great article about a new app called the Easy Phone, which helps people with dementia. And actually, a lot of people listening may just want to tap into that app as well. And there's a beautiful prayer that was posted called My Prayer. And I think you'll get some great insights from that. I do want to also just give a shout out to a couple of my colleagues here on Alive and Social. If you haven't listened to Apples to Apples, I think that's something you're going to want to turn into. You can find out how a father and son really kind of maneuver their thoughts about sports. A lot of bantering going on, and they pull in the Apple Orchard as well, which is their crowd. So check out Apples to Apples. And then Mortgage and BS is on Thursdays at 4 o'clock. And you'll learn a lot of secrets about home ownership and minimizing borrowing constraints. So check out Mortgages and BS there too. I want to wish everyone a wonderful holiday season. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye now.
It's time to rethink, renew, and reimagine retirement. Hey everybody, Jared Sylvester here, host of Retire Repurposed. Now this podcast is about the non-financial parts of retirement, which many times can be even more challenging than the financial. We believe retirement is not the end, rather the beginning of what could be the most impactful, purposeful, and fulfilling season of a person's life. So don't retire, become repurposed. To listen now, search Retire Repurposed on your favorite podcast platform, Senior Resource, or Life Audio.